everyone, thank you for watching a new channel. This week Anne is away, so I invite my favorite friend Jalen. Jalen, tell me which book we are talking about today.
Hi everyone, thank you Miwa for inviting me. This week we'll be talking about What the Rain Might Bring by Dylan Hausthor. The book is inspired by mushroom guide David Aurora, but it's not about mushrooms though. Instead, the book explores the mysterious relationship between people, plants, nature, and animals. Using mysterious black and white photos, the book has themes of faith, folklore, storytelling, and queerness. We'll also be joined by guest Elle Pérez, an artist who Dylan has worked with before. It will be interesting to hear what they think of each other's work.
Yes, I'm very excited to learn from them. At the end of the show, Jalen and I will talk about a favorite book by Araki, so stay tuned.
Excellent. Hi.
Hi.
This is Elle Pérez. Thank you for doing this. What an honor.
Oh, you're welcome. Who are you?
I'm Dylan Hausthor.
Oh, hello,
Hey.
Dylan Hausthor.
I was really excited to talk to you about this book because I feel like you saw it all. I feel like you saw at least the like deep beginnings of it.
For sure.
In like 2019. 6 years ago is when some of these pictures were made.
Kind of amazing that was 6 years ago.
I know, it's deranged. Yeah.
Okay, so the book.
This is the book,
Yeah.
What the Rain Might Bring, by me
And so
TBW.
Pictures from 2019 forward?
Yeah, I think so. I think the oldest picture is that first picture, actually, that you marked.
Yeah.
That one, which was in my first crit at Yale.
This was in your first crit?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like so frantically making work before going to grad school. And
where were you?
This was one of them. I was in Maine.
Yeah.
And briefly in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how did this picture come about?
This picture sort of, I like went back and forth. This is a picture of an old ballet teacher I had in Vermont, and I had like gone home to Vermont to visit my family, and I was at this gas station filling up gas, and there she was like on this, like sitting on the curb at the gas station.
Yeah.
Gas station's like hangout place.
And
she was there, and she had started going blind. You can sort of see in her eyes they're getting glossed over. And she was there just like with a little collection of things, including a bunch of mushrooms. And I went over and talked to her, and I feel like something sort of clicked. We set up a time to make this photograph together. And then, yeah, I feel like this picture started a lot of what I was interested in grad school. And then like that very suddenly stopped. And then I like sort of shifted everything into a whole different series of projects, but then came back to it right at the end of school. Yeah, and then this book sort of...
So it feels kind of fitting to have it as the opener also, because it sounds like it was just this...
It's the almost opener. It's the second picture. I think.
Sorry, I'm like...
forgot.
It is the second picture.
Yeah, cool.
Oh no.
But it feels like the opening character to me.
Well, then tell me about... Tell me about this one.
Yeah, this is also in that town
where
I grew up. And this was just this house, and me and an old partner were driving by it and asked to... I was like, I've always wanted to have a picture of people, of like one person on that roof. Yeah. And we pulled over and asked if we could make it. And the owner of it was like, that barn is coming down tomorrow. You better do it today.
Oh my God.
It's crazy.
I feel like so much of your work has to do with what you're describing, which is like this combination of people that you know very well, like who are from same town, known them for a long time, and then a kind of chance, like the barn is coming down tomorrow, but you've also been looking at it for years, and it was like, today's the day, you know, but then tomorrow is also the end of something.
Right.
And then the two meet with a kind of imagination in the photograph that feels like, I mean, there's some pictures that also, I wonder, I think I'm not the only one who is like, how did you make that? You know? And so I guess, what does that process feel like for you? Or like, how would you describe like the way that a picture begins or a way that a picture arrives?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on I guess the context of where I am in like a series of like project. I don't know. I think a lot
Do you think
about
in projects?
I kind of think in projects, which is like
Interesting.
an embarrassing thing I've
It's not
realized about myself.
I don't think
It
it's
feels a little embarrassing. Because I like for so long felt like I didn't, and felt like I was just like out making work every day differently.
Yeah.
Just kind of like having ideas, making
Yeah.
ideas, having ideas, making ideas.
Yeah.
And then I think like I sort of started recontextualizing everything into these like I'm actually really afraid of photography. I have to like deal with this fear of the tool. Like I'm very afraid of
Like
history of
like
camera.
afraid?
Yeah, like deeply afraid.
What
I
is
think
the root of the fear?
That's a good question. Great question. I think there's a few different roots, but I think there was like a time when I was like sort of confronted with the power of the camera. I made this project a trillion years ago as a teenager, and I got this like trail camera, which are now sort of like ubiquitous, but then wasn't. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I hadn't really thought about the history of photography much.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done like research into surveillance. But I had this camera, and then my friend who owns a farm was like having some movement in her hayloft, and asked if I could like put the camera up and get a picture of this raccoon to make sure it was a raccoon. And I put the camera up, and it wasn't. It was just her son that would like go up to the hayloft every night and do whippets. And so then I had like all of this footage of this kid going up there just doing whippets. And I was like, this is so bad. Like this tool is really scary. This tool is giving me like a lot of power that I don't deserve and I don't want. But I think in that fear, everything cracked open, and I was like, this is like why photographers are photographers. Like that power is actually wieldable.
What do you feel like the power was like you being able to like see something you weren't supposed to see, or learn something, or even like demystify like because even when you first said it, like movement up in the hayloft,
Yeah,
I was like, wow, how like poltergeist or something, you know, 100%. It's like, is it a raccoon?
Yeah.
Is it something else? And actually it's like something that I feel like would be one of your pictures, which like is this kid,
probably has been.
Teenager doing whippets in the hayloft like every night, and then causing this kind of disturbance, and then no one knows what's happening, but even the image itself would be like, it's kind of funny how like that the image that's just like the true thing that's happening is also sometimes like the strangest image that you can imagine.
Totally.
Or that at first looks like the strangest image that
making
or shouldn't be happening
for sure.
Or something.
Yeah.
But that kind of like gave you a jolt, because you're like, all right, wait, what am I doing with this thing?
Yeah, I guess I think it like made a lot. Everything just started making sense. It like I figured out how to like think through image making and like sequential image making, storytelling, I guess. That started making sense.
When did you first start making books? Because you've been making them for quite a while, actually.
Yeah, I've been making books since I was like right in undergrad, so I was 16.
Wow.
And I was just like constantly making zines like this one. Yeah.
You want to talk about this?
Sure. I made like I just made 25 of these 2 days ago.
When I actually first saw it, I screamed, and unfortunately, we did not get that on the tape.
Yeah, well, this was like very directly inspired by you. That's
why I screamed.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I have this very distinct memory of like, what do you do after grad school? And I had some friends like go to Skowhegan, but I didn't know much about it. And the thing I remembered was that you had said that there's like a sort of tradition, like a semi-tradition of mud wrestling.
Yeah.
And then when I went there, I was like talking to everybody about mud wrestling, and they're like, yeah, it happens every year. and no one tells anyone to do it. It just happens.
It just happens. Well, you know, you go, and
exactly.
Why does it happen?
Love
okay,
a lore.
You know, exactly. Love a lore, love a myth, and also like it happens because it rains a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mud up there, and we got some fields at Skowhegan, and you got 65 willing participants who got nowhere else to go.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing
to do that night. So might as well kind of get down and get into the mud.
Yeah. And then we all went swimming.
Yeah,
and so it's like
because you got to wash it off somehow.
Yeah. Totally.
Wow. And so
fun.
this is you documented.
Yeah, we just spent a couple nights.
Yeah. When were you
swimming.
there? What year were you
Last summer.
Wow.
Yeah, I miss it.
Yeah. Did you make pictures there? Did you make?
I made a lot there. I like ended up making a good amount of video. There was a time when I was like, maybe I'm not going to even bring my 4x5 camera and I'll just make videos. But I didn't do that.
That post grad, you're like,
Yeah,
well,
totally.
I don't need
I'm
you.
not even a photographer.
I don't need that 4x5.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to come with me to my whole summer residency
So true.
in Maine, where I make a lot of my pictures.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
Anyway.
I know. Yeah, I made a lot of video. I got really interested in distribution in a different way, which I think actually goes back to bookmaking a little bit.
Yeah, wait, what do you mean by that?
I think like I got stuck in print, in like capital T print or capital P print,
Print.
capital T print. I think because of school a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah, because you're like thinking in that
I
mode.
was just thinking in prints a lot.
Yeah.
And then I like made a bunch of zines and finished this.
Yeah. What was the process of putting this together? What was there like a? I feel like books come from a lot of different places, and I'm wondering like where this one for you comes from. Like, was it did it come from like a question? Did it come from realizing that you had a body of work that was doing something together? Did it come from a desire to make a book, or did it come from like somewhere else?
I'd say it was the second to last one.
I don't remember which one I said. I was giving you a bunch of options.
Yeah, totally. I think it was like I wanted. The 5-week turnaround of Yale is so special and also so like criminal. And I felt like I left with 100 seedlings. Like I had all of these tiny little ideas.
Totally.
And I think the first year or so out of school was like, are those different or are those the same thing?
Right.
Like, is this one plant? And I think I decided it was. And this is what came out of it. So like a picture like this. Well, actually a few of these, like that one. Well, the one of the Mennonites.
It is kind of funny after a while, like when you look at something that you did, that you spent so long, and then you forget exactly how it goes or something, or you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
But it like felt like a decision that like, you know, at the time was like, obviously,
like life or death. Totally.
Yeah, totally.
Like those two pictures were from this very specific project I was doing during COVID, where I was like living with different religious communities, partly because of this fear of photography. Like I sort of shifted that fear into just like fear of any fiction and storytelling and like faith in those stories. And so I was like, I gotta like talk with people that really have like a spiritual relationship with story,
like myth, like
totally. Yeah. And so making like this picture with the Mennonites, just spending a lot of time with like religious people helped.
What did it give you, or like what did you kind of learn from that experience?
So much. So much. I think the thing was like, I think the most powerful thing that I learned from it was that the power of the myth, of the story, is not totally it's just like not divorceable from art making and from my process of art making. And so like I think a lot of before that work I was like pushing against my fear of like telling other people's stories just because of the history of image making is so
totally.
violent.
I think so many people struggle with that too. Like so many people struggle with like the responsibility, or what can feel like an outsized burden sometimes of like having the camera and having it relate to truth, and then also having somebody else be identifiable, or having
and then writing a new truth with that identification is like pretty wild and scary.
And yet there's a book. So how do you move
I guess
through
to
that?
like answer the question.
So you moved through it,
Totally.
Which I think is also it is
somewhat move through
it's possible. Yeah,
I hope.
I think you did it. Yeah.
I think it was like, well, so like that came from a very specific project at Yale. I was like only spending time with people who had like a deep faith.
Is this like another one?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then I started like that felt like a little seedling
Mm-hmm.
of an idea of like a thing. And then I also had these photographs of like, I don't know, a lot of the other pictures in the book of like insects and just like space and land.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden everything started like sort of meshing together.
Yeah.
In like, I don't know, 2022 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love pictures like this, like the kind of is that a salamander?
Yeah, or something. I very briefly moved to the West Coast, and the wildlife on the West Coast.
I grew up in New York City.
Freaked me out. Yeah.
I'm like, is this a salamander? But I think it is kind of amazing to have something seem so like, I don't know, something. He seems mysterious, or like a bobcat, or I think a lot of the natural world that like appears in these photographs, they feel like they're also the protagonists of this work too, like deer, spiders, this owl.
Yeah, this owl.
Which also big figure in mythology and various kind of cultural myths, stories, and the snake.
Yeah, the
like
snake. I love a
you know,
snake.
so it's almost like a kind of roll call of like all of the animals
Definitely.
that do populate like a lot of early myths or creation myths, or are also, this is the one I was looking for actually, like the
mosquito.
The mosquitoes on the mushroom.
Yeah.
But then like an image like this, is this something that it's something that you're seeing while you're making it, while you're out shooting, or are you thinking about this? Are you kind of like, you're like, if I can only find the perfect mushroom with the perfect mosquito on it, or is it something that arrived while you were out kind of in the world?
It was that one in this case, yeah. Well, I think a part of this interest in myth and story is also just an interest in like the miraculous.
Yeah.
And where my like and finding it and looking hard for it. And where my sort of like selfishy, imaginative head is sort of like in relation to the world and its miracles. This felt like a miracle.
Yeah.
I think like, so these black pages are these like fold outs of this moth that would come to my studio every night. And then these spider webs that are adhered to it are from, there's this sort of legendary farmer named Will Knight, died a few years ago in Vermont, who had the spider web farm. And he was like, oh my God, he's so cool. He just had this barn full of orb weavers that in these frames, and he would like encourage them to build spider webs in these frames.
Wow.
The coolest. And then he would
orb
scoop
weavers
their
are
spider
big.
web. Yeah, terrifying. Yeah, 100%. And then he would like scoop these webs onto black sheets of paper and sell them so he could continue to grow his farm. And then these spider webs, I was deeply inspired by Will.
Carefully trying to show them to the camera.
Totally. And these pages are so there's 7 black beautiful fold outs.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about like the sequence of the book, because all of these different projects sort of made their way into this single one.
Yeah.
And I had a really hard time sequencing and editing it because of that. I started with triple the amount of pictures.
Yeah. How do you think about it? Like how does it function for you as like an object? Or...
Well, I think once this, I don't remember who came up with this, either Paul Sheik or I, but once this idea of chapter markers came about, everything made sense. So there's 7 days is what it is. And it's sequential, actually. It like starts in the morning, typically, or it starts at dawn, every black page, and then goes to the night, and then another black page.
Okay, so every
and then it does that 7
chapter
times.
Is like a day, a single day
Mm-hmm.
in this world, but the images are from, they're kind of days that you've made. Is that like...
Fake days.
So that obviously for me reminds me of like Genesis, like as like a kind of 7 days of like creation or something. And like, so is that kind of part of, and I know spirituality is like a big part of how you think about your work, and also like what's I'm trying to find like a good way to say this, and even like the staying like making relationships with like religious communities, and then was that structure something that you had originally wanted to investigate, or like became, or like were you thinking about like something like the one of the origin stories of Christianity then becoming like a structure, or was it kind of like something that when it made sense it then also fit in as well, and that's also kind of miraculous?
Yeah, I think maybe a mix of those. Like it was once we like realized this way of structuring the book, everything it like made perfect sense. But it wasn't. It didn't start with that. Yeah, it was like honestly, thank God.
Because you can be in the dark for a long time, and then finally something like hits, and you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah,
like I got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there was also when we started working on the structure of the book, we were talking a lot about just like feelings. Do you know the band Grouper?
I'm embarrassed to say no.
Don't worry about it. She's like top tier for me. Very important. And I was like listening to Grouper a lot while making this, and I think something that the like sonic landscape of that band is so extraordinary, and it feels somewhat faithful. Like there's some sort of like relationship with faith in the music, especially I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about her music a lot when we were working on the structure of it. And then I was sort of realizing, I was thinking a lot, I was reading Eve Tuck and Siri, who in this specific essay that they wrote together called A Glossary of Haunting. And in it, in the intro, I start all my lectures with the intro of it. It's like unbelievably powerful. And they talk about like the power of hiding, and especially in queer theory, and like where like fear of being known, how relevant that is to the way that people move through the world. And so I was also thinking about this book as like a thing that is doing a lot of like vulnerable like pouring, but is also like has some sort of level of withholding.
Yes. I mean, which like, the first thing that you notice is that there's no text.
Well, I don't know if you know about this. I was like, is this going to be like a surprise for you?
I think it actually is a surprise for me.
Do you know about this?
No, and okay,
So this is my book. Don't worry. We haven't talked about this much, but
because it was one of the first things as you're cutting open the book.
Yeah.
One of the first things that I noticed actually when I looked at it was I was like, wow,
not a word.
No text, not a word. And honestly, I was like, hell yeah.
Oh yeah, well sorry.
No, but I think this is amazing. And like very you that this would be like embedded in the book, hidden in the book. You would have to cut it out with a pocket knife that you took out of your pocket. So number one, it's for anyone. The book is for anyone who carries
video, actually.
A pocket knife.
Yeah, exactly.
You're the audience for the book. And so, this is like this beautiful. Hold on, wait, I got
a little surprise in there. So it's just 7 little like pieces. 7 little poems.
And where did they come? Did you write them? Or they?
Yeah. This was like an extraordinary last minute thing. This was, I was at Skowhegan actually, and we were like, it's going to print. And I was like, I still don't know what's in the little tiny zine that we're gluing in the back that no one's going to read. And then he was like, I don't know, just say something. And I wrote these little 7 poems. And
they're beautiful. Yeah. And they start with the story. Like, so for instance, the picture that we started with, like, a woman lives in her hometown and sits outside the gas station drinking coffee. She's been going blind for the past decade and used to teach ballet. So during the past few years, she fell out of love, started growing a garden, and found God. And it's like, whoa, it's so beautiful. But then also the second part is like, she always keeps a small collection of freshly picked mushrooms next to her, hands them to people saying, mushrooms have no gender. Did you know that? And then that's the vignette. That's the first kind of, do you feel like it's a vignette for the first chapter? And then these are all kind of for the chapters. So I love that. I love this as like a starting point. And then the images take you to wherever they take you. And so in a way, they're like, every person gets to kind of create their own like image myth out of each of these chapters and the whole book as well. Like that kind of
Yeah, I think it was also this like
comes together.
this sort of weird distance between like the vulnerable and the withholding, and like it feels photographic. It feels like how much power are you giving and how much are you taking, and where does that sort of live in in survival.
I feel like what I love about your pictures is that like the photographs become that balance. Like every photograph is like the result of like you trying to strike that balance in like a new way. And then also I think like miraculous is like the word I was looking for in the beginning when I was like, it feels like it has to do with chance. And it has to do with with fate, like fate and chance just colliding into like the image, like right on that 4x5, you know, or the trail camera, or like, you know, whatever it is that you're using.
Right.
So it feels fitting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And also the fact that I would also say the cover, the font.
Yeah, this font is from. It's like, yeah, I know it's so embarrassing.
No, it's not.
It's like a little too on brand.
You know, but I think that just tells how honest it is. I think also. Like
I was thinking about hiding. Yeah. And like, what are you gonna wrap a book in that has something physically hiding in it, other than something invented to like hide from animals?
What's the importance of the color?
I like it.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You know, and also that.
Yeah.
And also that.
There is like a lot of intuition in this book too.
Yeah.
It's like there is like a lot of sort of complicated and like really in my head stuff, but there is a lot of intuition in it. The font is from, I made it. It's from this, it's kind of a combination of these two manuscripts that were at Yale, at the Bianchi. It is the Voynich manuscript and Mandeville's Travels. These two, one is like, no one really knows what the Voynich manuscript says. It's like a hidden language. And then Mandeville's Travels is this totally fake, fictional story of conquest, of like colonial conquest. And these two, and Mandeville talks about like seeing monsters in the Americas. Really like two very radically different, but I was very inspired by their like way of using myth. Those two manuscripts of using myth. Yeah.
And I love your sort of like repositioning of even those myths into this new myth. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh my god, thank you. What an honor.
Same.
Thanks.
So Miwa, what's your favorite book this month?
My favorite book is Araki. This came out 10 years ago by Takaishi Gallery. His gallery make his publication, have an exhibition every year around his birthday. This one is my favorite. The reason why I like this book is that it's got a lot of blank pages, however, it feels full of the meaning. Yes, it's quiet because of the blank pages, but somehow it's very emotional. I find it kind of essence of Zen. So Jalen, which book is your favorite?
My favorite book is Midori. It's very different from the rest of Araki's work. It's not erotic at all, and instead explores the nature and relationship between him and one of his favorite models. It features a lot of somber black and white photos, and is very muted in its expression, but super different, and all in all, really interesting.
Yes, I love Midori. I find that the sadness and the beauty coexist in this publication. Thank you very much for watching with us, and then see you next time.
Goodbye.